Please, a very warm welcome and round of applause for Nevena Hristozova. Yeah. Thank you. Nice to see you again. I'm actually one of the people that keeps coming back to the Brigth Club. I guess I never learn. So I am a PhD student in University of Brussels. I'm doing my degree in molecular biology, and as every graduate student, I started with the big hopes that my project will change the world. By now, both me and my boss know that that's not going to happen. So I'm focusing on finally graduating and moving on. I know that many of you probably feel or felt that way as well, but that's okay, because if there's one thing that is important while you're doing your research, and especially if it's a graduate program, is that no matter what, you will graduate in one thing, all of you, me included probably, in patience. Because let's face it, there's a lot of waiting around in science, especially if, like me, you're doing biology studies and lab work. You're waiting for your mice to develop cancer. That's what you do. You're waiting for your experiment to finish so you can see that it crapped out somewhere in the beginning and you have to do it over and over again. But the most excruciating weight of it all is the line for the coffee machine. It's a lot of waiting. Most of my colleagues are being productive, so they do other experiments while they're waiting on the previous ones. Not me. That's too mainstream for me. I decide to read papers. Now, it would have been useful for me if I was reading papers that were in any way remotely related to my research, but no. I decide to fill my time by reading silly papers, which gives me hope. You would not believe how much silly research gets actually published. It's amazing. It really makes my day. So, I do have my favorites, but I usually classify the papers that I'm reading based on their what the fuck factor. The what the fuck factor, basically, the higher the what the fuck factor, the silliest the research done, and the most money has been spent for essentially nothing. And most of the times you can tell by the title, but not always. Now, one of my favorite papers with one of the highest what the fuck factors is a paper that got published in the Journal of Polar Biology some years ago, and was essentially studying the dynamics of penguin poo. There's a government in Europe that spend a lot of money to ship a bunch of scientists to the polar regions to study how penguins poo. So they did manage to produce this incredible paper with this amazing graph of a penguin and all the distances at which it poos from the nest. They measured the pressure with which it expels its product. They even measured the diameter of the penguin's butthole while it was crapping. I'm reading this and I'm thinking that was probably a lowly PhD student like me who had to go out for hours in minus 30 degrees and measure the size of the penguin's butthole while it was crapping. And that person was thinking that he's actually contributing to science. I really hope he got paid for that, at least. On the other hand, there's silly research that I would love to be part of. There's this one paper, for example, in the International Dairy Journal called Fat Destabilization of High Protein Containing Ice Creams. Now, For something like that, you don't just write a grand proposal. You write a proposal that is grand. You don't just ask for 2 boxes of ice cream for researches like this. So, on the optimistic part, you have 4 years of grad school, if you're lucky. You have 12 months per year, you have 4 weeks per month, and for statistics, you have to ask for at least 3 boxes per week. So that's 576 boxes of ice cream. Do you know how many boxes of ice cream I got in my research that I'm not working on ice creams? Actually, 576, but I didn't get paid for them. So yeah, I wish I knew better while I was choosing my graduate project. But then my day does not end properly if I haven't trashed a humanities paper, because that's what we natural scientists do. My favorite lately is an actual thesis of a lady from the States that was called "The Knitting as a Feminist Project." And then I'm sitting there thinking, how can you possibly think that knitting can be an expression for feminism? So I checked. There's actually a group in the US which is called Stitch and Bitch. I'm not kidding. They organize their rallies sitting down and knitting, protesting for their views. And I have this little symbol that is a crocheted boob with like little nipple on top. Priceless. Who knew that that's a thing? And even more, who knew, I actually do love knitting, and I picked it up recently as a stress relief thing from lab. Little that I knew I was turning feminist while relieving myself from the stress. And so were my friends, because all of them got hats for Christmas. But the weirdest part is that I actually think I'm a little bit of a bad feminist. I'm trying, but to be honest, apart from the knitting, I don't think I'm doing very well on the feminist part. Because I actually do enjoy when people hold the door for me and not let it slam my face. I do like spending time in the kitchen because my success rate there is actually much higher than in the lab. And I really like painting my nails colorful every week. So yeah, I'm not doing a very good job as a feminist, but at least I'm trying to compensate by being at least a decent scientist. Thank you.